Thanks, Jerry. For everyone here, if you don't know me, my name is Nathan Brady, and this is my second year with the legislative intern program. So what I'd like to talk to you about today is I want to go over real briefly, since we have limited time, the legislative management policy regarding interns. I've provided each of you a copy of that. It looks something like this. This is the formal policy, and there was one change to the policy this year. If you turn to page, it's the back side of your second page, I believe. And I've handwritten in there a change from 75 to 90 interns. We've bumped up from, in the past we've been authorized to hire up to 75 interns, and this year we've gone up to 90. So with that comes a lot of work. Many of you have dedicated interns who haven't had dedicated interns in the past. You've had to share, and so as such we felt that this training would be very helpful to you in giving you some ideas of what you can do and how you can utilize your intern effectively. I'm going to start off by talking about a little bit about that policy, and then we're going to go to a panel of three legislators who have some great experience in utilizing their interns. When I'm done talking with you, we're going to go to Representative Dunnigan, and we have Representative Arendt and Senator Jones. Our policy is, as I mentioned, I'm authorized to hire up to 90 interns. We have about 85% of those interns are dedicated interns, and roughly 15% are shared. That means they'll be working for two legislators instead of being dedicated to just one. I've given you a handout. It's a one-pager titled How to Use Your Intern Effectively. I'm not going to go through everything on here, but I've outlined some of the expectations and the prohibited activities that our interns that are laid out for our interns in our Legislative Management Committee policy. Let me just point out, we expect your intern to be here no later than 8 a.m. every morning during the weekday that the legislature is in session. You may require them to be here earlier than that. You may need them to be here by 7:30. You may need them to be here by 7. In the policy, we clearly state that that is subject to their coordination with you. So that requires communication on both parts. If you need them to be here early, I recommend that you talk to them the day before. And to interns, we've trained them and we've talked to them about these expectations, and I've asked them to be available and accessible to their legislators, and that means they've got to be proactive in seeking you out and making sure that they're meeting your needs. They're required to be here until 5 o'clock or until your officially scheduled meetings are done. So that means floor time, if it goes beyond 5 o'clock, they're required to be here. The exception being, if you decide that you don't need them and you're done with them for the day, you can go ahead and release them. That's, again, subject to you. It's at your discretion. But my expectation, our office's expectation, is that they're here from at least 8 to 5, and I've made that clear with our interns. Again, there are days that they're going to be sick, stuff comes up, there are emergencies, and we understand that. I have asked them if that happens, they are to contact you directly and talk to you about what's happening and get your approval that they either, if they need to show up late that day, then they show up late. If they need to leave early, they need to leave early. Or if they're unable to make it in for whatever reason, they talk to you, and then they talk to me. And I've asked them to do that via email. You can determine whatever method is best for you to communicate that. But my purpose in doing that is I want to, if I find out there's an intern who is unable to be here or they're going to be late, I need to talk to you and find out if you need coverage for the day, and we'll see what we can do to make that happen. I would ask if you, I'll point out one thing. Since we only have 90 interns, and the intern slots are at a premium, every school wants more interns. Every school wants to increase the number that they're providing, and so it's fairly competitive. We determine the number of slots based on ability to provide and historical performance. I would ask of you that during the session, as things go along, that you be in communication with me. If there are any issues, I need to know what's going on so that I can address those issues. And I will, if you email me or text me or call me and leave me a message, I will get back in touch with you right away. And I will talk to you about if we need to take action, what that action would be. We require our interns to dress professionally and behave accordingly. We've asked them to show respect for their legislator, for the facilities, for your constituents, and for the other interns. If there are any issues with those, I want to know about them right away.
Thank you. Good morning. I look at my intern as a member of my legislative team during the session, and I heavily involve and engage the intern in my work. Early on when I started, I shared an intern with another representative, and I saw my intern at the first of the session, and I kind of just took whatever he came or offered, or I'd say, oh yeah, sure, go do that. And I didn't see him much for the rest of the session. And so I assumed the representative I was sharing with was really working my intern like a slave because I never saw my intern. So towards the end of the session, I talked to the other representative and I said, "Gad, you're really working our intern. I never see him." And he says, "I never see him either." I said, "I thought you were really working him to death because, you know, I saw him early on in the session and I haven't seen him since." Well, that was a surprise to both of us, and it found out that our intern was working hard with members of the opposite sex and trying to establish relationships there. Now that is an anomaly. I've had very good interns, and I work my interns hard. I believe I give them a good experience. In addition to doing what I call the routine things like preparing my binders for committee works for the next day, tabulating survey results, attending town meetings, responding to constituent issues. I also involve my intern in all the policy discussions, well, almost all the policy discussions that I'm involved in. And I ask my intern to keep the matters that we discuss confidential, and so far they have. But I engage them. You know, when I'm working on legislation with the different stakeholders, I have my intern attend, and I ask my intern, you know, what their ideas are about the policy to try to get them engaged and allow them to have an opportunity to participate. One thing I really stress with my intern is to ask questions. I found that if the intern kind of is hesitant to ask questions about a task or direction, they just go off and do it. It takes a lot more effort to undo or redo that. So I heavily stress ask questions. I don't know if you asked me that same question 5 minutes ago. If you're not sure about who to set the meeting up or how to do it, ask questions. I also use my intern to bird dog my legislation throughout the process. When I work my legislation, I don't just present the bill and then expect wonderful things to happen. So I follow it all the way through the process, through the committee, to the Rules Committee, to the Standing Committee in the House, over in the Senate. We'll go talk to the appropriate committee chair or the Rules Chairman in the Senate to advance my legislation, and I will have my intern do that, take notes to the appropriate chairman. Can you get this on the agenda? And you know, they dread seeing my intern come because they're always chasing them to try to get either my bill heard or on the agenda or out of rules. I also use my intern to help research constituent issues. And I have to point them in the right direction. As Nathan said, you know, they're new to the process, not sure who to contact, but I'll give them the contact in the state agency or department or ledge research and say, go and find out this information. I use my intern to schedule appointments and calendars. So when people want to meet with me, I will tell them to talk to my intern. I do that for two reasons. My intern is responsible for helping me collect my calendar, keep it up to date, and they're also responsible for helping me to get to meetings on time. That's a real challenge for them because I get meetings stacked up one to the other, but they're responsible for reminding me that I need to meet with so-and-so, but by having my appointments go through my intern, not only does it help me keep a calendar, but it also gives me a pause to think if I really want to meet with the people. So when people come up and ask to meet with me, and let me just say, I'm willing to meet with almost everybody, but I have it go through my intern, and then I can prioritize those that I want to meet with instead of just immediately say, yeah, I would be glad to meet with. Also, that heavily involves my intern in the process. They get to know many of the stakeholders up here that are soliciting meetings, and they get to, she or he gets to know the issues. I believe that the more that we involve our interns, they'll have a good experience. And I'll be frank, I work my intern like a slave, but I don't have them do just little mundane work, you know, go do this or go do that. As I said, I involve them in the policy issues, and organizing meetings, setting up meetings, having the room prepared, and then, as I said, soliciting their input. If I don't have anything for my intern to do at 8 a.m., I won't have them here at 8 a.m. I have them come here when I need them, but I have them stay late when I need them too. And I know that as the session progresses, I look at it this way: we build up reserves and capital at the first of the session so we can have it later on when it gets crazy. I have my intern stay late if I'm having meetings, but if I don't need them in the morning, for example, this morning I've got an appropriation subcommittee, starts at 8. I have my intern come in at 9, and then we'll get started while I'm in committee. I'm not going to have them come here and sit around for an hour with really nothing to do. However, I do expect them that if I have an early morning meeting, they'll be here if I need them here, and they also will stay late if I need them later in the day.
Representative Dunnigan, I'm sorry to interrupt. I really appreciate what Representative Dunnigan just pointed out. I didn't mean to imply that regardless of your schedule, your intern has to be here at 8 a.m. It really is subject to you and your schedule. This is just kind of the basic schedule that I would expect. Sometimes, if you don't need your intern to be here until 9 or 10 o'clock or noon, that's fine, but I would expect your intern to communicate with me because I may need him or her to provide coverage, help me out in another area. Sometimes we have interns who have an emergency and are out sick and I need to help provide coverage, but that is just something that I've requested of your interns. You may not need them, but I may need them to help cover another area.
Jim? Question in reference to the scheduling of your intern. Do you allow them access to your schedule on the state site as well as your email?
Yes, that's a good question. I'm pretty open with my intern. I've not been burned yet. So yes, I give them complete access to my emails, and I give them access to my office. I tell them my office, my capital office, is your office during the session. You need to feel comfortable. You can go there, put your stuff there, and work there when they need a place to work. They have the intern room. For me, depends where your office is. My office is here in the Capitol. I have committee meetings here, so I want them close. And when I'm on a committee meeting, I'll either have my intern attend the committee meeting with me, or I'll have them doing other work. Again, if I don't have anything for them to do, I generally won't have them just sit in a committee meeting so I can make sure that they're not goofing off. But as the session goes on, they have plenty to do. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. And maybe this next question that I have is for Nate. Do they have a key to our office that's not in the Capitol?
The rules are different for the House and the Senate. The Senate will allow interns to have a key if the legislator signs a form. The House will not. That is a House policy.
What do you do with emails? Do you let them respond?
So I was going to, I let them have access to my email account. And then every day I will go through, I have my intern check in with me regularly on the floor. We set up instant message on the computer, so I'll either have my intern in the gallery up in my office so we can communicate regularly. Of course, we have text and so forth. But every day, start of the day, we'll come in and we'll go through the emails. And many of the emails are on the same issue, so I'll develop a response and then have my intern respond to all those people. I also have them capture emails. And as probably you do, I build up an email database of constituents. When I identify constituents, and I actually love it when we get a hot issue and everybody sends me hate emails, because if they're from my district, I capture them. And we add it to the email list and continue to build the email list. So I give them direction on how to respond. I don't send out a boilerplate response. I try to respond to every constituent if I can identify as a constituent. And then I'll have my intern, I'll say, this is the gist of what I want you to say. And then whenever we get an email in on this issue, you give this response and you send it back. That's my 10 minutes.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Representative Dunnigan. At this point, I would like to turn the time over to Representative Arrett. And you may have some questions, and hopefully we'll get to them all. But again, if something comes up and you do have a question, please feel free to ask away. We prefer this to be more of a discussion than a lecture.
It's interesting because Jim and I did not compare notes, and we do a lot of the same things. I started out here as an intern. The only difference is no UTA pass and no $2,400, but I did get the credit. I also had to tell you I got my intern in trouble with Jerry early on because I'm kind of an informal person. And I said, call me Patrice. No. Then they did it publicly, and Jerry was not very happy about that. So, because they have to use our titles, and I understand why. I do almost all of the same things. There's one exception, and I will tell you, and this is where I've been burned. I don't let my intern email anyone without me knowing what's going on and seeing it, because a lot of mistakes get made. First of all, I'm very much into making sure everything is grammatically correct. I like nouns and verbs in the same sentence. And a lot of our new folks that come through, I mean, I just hate to say it, as I've seen this, and this is my 14th session, writing has really just deteriorated. It looks more like text. So, and even if they're just giving a boilerplate, if they are responding to my neighbor and they put, you know, Dear Dr. English, and he's like, huh? Isn't this supposed to be John? You know, who's this really coming from? So I really try and keep very close track of my own email. I use my intern to bounce ideas off of also, because sometimes I am so into an issue that I'm really just into the details. It's better to have somebody who doesn't really know it as well to say, does this make sense to you? Because when I'm trying to explain it to somebody else, the details of the PM 2.5 may just go over their head. I use my intern in a way also when I'm on the floor. And I've got to stay on the floor. It's an important issue, and some important constituents or lobbyists are out there and they're handing me notes. I'll actually send my intern to go over to them and say, you know, Representative Aaron is so sorry. This is what she's doing. They understand. Can I please get all of the information that you brought? Because she really wants it. She'd love to talk to you later, but she just can't step off the floor now. She's presenting a bill or whatever. I'm going to go through some of the questions that Nathan gave me in terms of what you do and with your interns. Daily activities, a lot of the same things. Again, I also have them, I think it's important to have them put together books for my binders for my standing committee. And legislators will vary on this. And I'm the original, as you know. I passed the bill to say we don't want a lot of paper reports. But I think that the bills that you go to committee with, really, it's sometimes better to have a hard copy of those. You scribble notes on them and all that. So the minute the committee agenda comes out, I make sure my intern puts that together, and I actually will go through quickly and look at those bills to say, oh, you ought to talk to so-and-so. He's an expert on this area. Here's an attorney downtown you might want to check in with. Let's get some information. When I ask my intern to do things, and partially it's because it's my own horrible memory, I often will do that by email or in writing so I can remember I actually gave them the assignment. And sometimes it's a good practice just every morning to say, let's see what you're doing. Let's go over your assignments. Have I given you too much? Let's prioritize them because they can't all be done at once. Again, I take my interns to meetings just like Jim does. I think it's important for them to not only learn substance, but to learn about the process. And if they only see, you know, as part of it, they really don't get the feeling for that. And I think it's important. I've had interns now that have been elected to, well, one represents a whole lot more people than I do. And so I think it's really important for them to get a big feel for that process. I have them keep track of the press. I actually want to know how I'm quoted, so if sometimes I have to deal with that issue later or see it just so I know someone's going to use it against me. So I try and keep track of the press. And I have them put together a press binder, just to kind of, not every article where your name is, but kind of the major stuff. I have them help me create weekly updates for my constituents that we send out and help me come up with some ideas what might be interesting. And I always have them proof those things and look at those things because they're seeing it more through the eyes of the constituent than I am. They might say, what's that all about? Or does that make sense? I always want to make sure they understand everything that we're saying to them because it's confusing. They're hearing acronyms. They're hearing, you know, names of people. They have no idea who they are. They hardly even know who we are, let alone when you tell them to go talk to so-and-so in a department. They don't know who these people are. So you really, particularly at the beginning of the session, have to make sure they understand that because it's so hard for them. And also, I can't say this enough, when you have an issue, and sometimes it pops up, never during the session, but sometimes it happens, please talk to Nathan. He has been so great, and Jerry before him, when we've had issues to work out. I think most of the things I really do with my intern are very similar. Access to my office, the key issue is a huge one for me. Trying to communicate with them as much as possible. Again, email. Sometimes I just copy my interns, by the way, on emails that they have no assignment to do anything, but I just want them to kind of see that as part of the process and get a feeling for what my position is on something. So I'll blind copy them just so they'll know what's going on. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. I've just had some really wonderful, wonderful interns. I've been very, very lucky since I've been up here. If not,
Excellent. I just want to echo something that Representative Aaron just said. Sometimes you may have issues that you're working on that your intern isn't as involved in, but if you do take the time to involve them and engage them and they get to know and understand your position better, they want to do a good job. They want to to do the best job for you, and sometimes they're more able to do that when they understand the big picture of where you're coming from. I want to turn the time over to Senator Jones, and
Great. Well, I have 2 keys. I have 2 keys. I guess senators don't need any help. I think all of you are House members, so it's really nice to be with all of you.
They know it all already.
Yeah, okay, I'm getting that. You know, I was a Hinckley intern many years ago, and I did a media internship. And I was assigned to KSL TV. And I went there thinking it was in the middle of the winter, you know, and everything. And I thought maybe I'd be serving, you know, coffee or cocoa or whatever to people and paper clip things. But I really appreciated the fact that they gave me the opportunity to produce the morning show. And it was a great experience for me. And that taught me how important it is that we use our interns in a way that's meaningful for them. I'll never forget that experience, and it did help me understand the media, okay, which is another issue. I appreciate this training. This is something that I've been asking for a long time. You know, how do we get people to use their interns more effectively? My husband taught at the Hinckley Institute for many years and taught and trained interns, and so I kind of heard it from a different perspective, and there were a number of interns that felt like the experience was not as wonderful as they had expected. It was rare, because most of them did. But the worst thing that can happen to them is that they feel relegated to a little room down in the basement somewhere. They really want to be used effectively. They want to be used in a way where they will learn from it. When I first interview my interns, the first question I ask, and for some reason I usually get females, not all of the time, but most of the time, my interns have been females. And I always ask them, I'm hoping that this experience will be so great for you that you will consider running for office someday. And that would be my ultimate goal for any young person that is an intern. And for the first time this year, the first person I interviewed, she says, oh, I plan to. And I thought, that's exactly the answer I would like to hear more often from our young people. And I'm just hoping she still feels that way after this session.
Maybe not.
So my suggestion would be to help develop the person. You know, over the years, I'm a business person, and I've hired many people over the years. And I look at this person as if I were training an employee. Make it that day. So Sylvie was on the radio with me. And she's a debater. She's fabulous. And she did a tremendous job. She showed up everybody. And so it was a great experience for her. She already was engaged. And so I think it's really important you take them everywhere with you. I'm a person that likes someone that helps me organize. I mean, my mail, I'm kind of known for letting my mail stack up in the little box there, and so she's already started doing that. I like to set clear expectations the first day or even before you use them, so they know exactly what my expectations are. I learn their strengths and their, you know, where they're weak, and then we kind of mesh each other's strengths and weaknesses. I do like to also check and make sure they know how to write. I don't like my interns to send out emails unless I check them, so kind of like Patrice on that one. Patrice was my mentor, so that's probably where I got a lot of this. But town meetings, we involve our interns in town meetings. They're planning ours right now for February 10th. We have a group of us in similar geographical areas that work together. I like my intern to read the bills that I will be hearing the next day, and I like to have them read it and ask them what questions they would ask. It kind of gives them an idea of what the bills are and the issue. It helps them learn about the issues. And I've had really good questions from my interns by doing that. So that's one thing that has helped me greatly. Mine is often a bad cop, kind of similar to Representative Dunnigan, where you'll have a lot of people that want to come up to you and talk to you at the same time, and they kind of intervene. And so we have a little queue. That's like, can you get this person away for a few minutes so I can have some time of my own or whatever. And I also am using them more and more on social media. Do you find that most of our interns know more about social media than, or am I just alone? So that has been extremely useful. So that's
Excellent. Are there any
basically what I
questions?
have.
I really,
Or suggestions.
Yeah,
You guys may have some
suggestions.
better ideas than we have.
It'd be nice to ask the interns.
What information do they have access to? Like I had one last year send out certificates on Eagle Scouts. I didn't know we even had access to or anything like that. Do they have access to all of my constituent and our list?
yeah, they can, it varies by, I'm sorry, I saw another hand. Did you have a comment on this issue?
Yeah, I did. I was just going to say that the Boy Scouts of America, the office up around Foothill,
Send you the list.
will send you a list. It's I mean, it's a comprehensive list of all areas. You just go through and cross out the zip codes that I guess you want to send letters to.
Well, apparently they send them to these, to the
Well, I
interns
requested-
here,
no, no.
because I requested that, and they had it all broken out into my district.
Yeah, that's something that they can get from
Last year, I
scouts, but they can do it. They can, oftentimes they'll be working on something. If you have a shared intern assignment, then they'll be working on something for their
Yes.
other assigned legislator.
And that's where they got the-
that's
That's what it
might be
was.
where they get the idea to be a little proactive. So I always love to see our interns being proactive.
And I use them to do that too. But you know what? For an intern to go through the list and figure out who's in my district, it's going to take them a long time. For
Yes.
me to go through and do it, it's like 5 minutes. I can run through that entire list. And so I tend to just go through, check off the names and say, do the certificates.
Yeah.
So help me understand kind of their learning curve and how quickly you can start relying on them. You know what, I come from my old job, I had an assistant and, you know, I felt like it took them 6 months just to figure out what they're doing. And now you've got 6 weeks, and so how do you just throw, because my struggle is, how do I trust them enough and, you know, are they gonna drop the ball if I give them too much too quickly?
So it varies by intern. I mean, I've had lots of interns up here. They do go through training before we get them. So remember, they've already had some experience before you see them. But it is true, it will take some of them until the 4th week to find the bathroom. And that's,
I haven't
and
found
Craig
out.
hasn't found it yet either.
I don't know.
But I think it varies. You've got to kind of gauge with that intern. I don't give them so much responsibility that they're taking over something and, you know, I mean, there's no way I would say, go out, research this, answer the constituent, and I'm not involved. I don't trust them that far. They don't know enough about it. And even if they did know the issue well enough, they don't know how to kind of gauge the way you write that kind of a letter.
We have a broad range of interns and abilities. All of our interns, the University of Utah has opened up their intern training program to any of the other participating schools that would like to send their students or students that would like to register. This year we had University of Utah students with Weber State students and Utah State students who were trained on legislative process and things to do. They're trained on how to track a bill. They're trained on the legislative process and committees and how everything works. So they get some background, okay? The vast majority do. But again, with 90 interns, 88 this year, you just get a wide range, and it kind of is upon you to gauge your intern, learn what you can about them, and for them to become proactive and demonstrate what they can do. Jerry, is there anything else that they're trained on that I've missed? Jerry teaches the class at the University of Utah, and he
These
does a
students,
wonderful job.
they ought to be able to hit the ground running. The thing that we emphasize the most is loyalty. We want them to be loyal to legislators to whom they're working, keep things in confidence, work for your interests and your interests alone. I think most of them do that very well. We haven't had any issues with interns not being loyal for many, many years. My advice to you would be to work your intern until he cracks a little bit, until the pressure's on him, and then you know what their limits are. But the more you push them, I think the harder they work and the more experience they get from the opportunities that they have here, and the more they leave enjoying it. Senator Jones talked about producing a show as an intern, and I'm not going to recommend that, but maybe for some. But these students are dedicated, they're eager, they're ambitious. They will work as hard as you will let them, and I would encourage you to work them hard. The other thing that I'd like to just say just briefly is that many of these interns report that this experience is really the capstone of their educational experience. that coming here and working in the legislature is the best opportunity that they were given as undergraduate students. It helps forge their life's ambitions and life's goals. Many of them are directed in a particular career path because of their experience with the legislator. It is meaningful to them, it's life-changing for them, and it's something that they report years later as being really the capstone of their educational experience. So I think that.
Can I just add one thing? And it's a change in the interns, and that is, when I first started, the interns tended to be almost always juniors and seniors, at least the ones for the Hinckley. Now, because those interns want to go on to other internships, DC, Brussels, whatever, they tend to be younger. So you need to think of them as some of them only being a year out of high school. And, you know, that's a little bit different in terms of their social skills. It's a little bit different in terms of their research skills. So just kind of look at your intern to see where they are in that process.
And statistically speaking, if I could point out, the vast majority of our interns are juniors and seniors, but we do have a lot of sophomores. We only have...
What's the requirement for an internship? Like, do they have to have completed a certain course?
No,
Or-
it depends on the school.
So theoretically, they could be freshmen.
But they could be, but also they could be a junior that got a lot of that credit in high school, and I've seen plenty of them come through. So they may
that's
be,
true.
they may be a junior, but this may be their second year at the university.
And I had a
I'd sit down
freshman,
and interview with them,
I
find out.
I had
what
a
they-
freshman last year that was excellent.
Yeah.
So it's just,
It varies.
okay.
You know, I've got to feel bad for the interns that have two legislators they're working
Somebody
with,
should have
because
three.
I don't know if you've ever worked for anybody where you had to report to two bosses, but it's almost impossible because you've got expectations from one boss and expectations from another boss, and you're trying to, you know, the poor intern's probably trying to coordinate. I think that's got to be a tough situation for them.
Sure, and we've talked to them about that. It's going to require some communication. They understand, and we emphasize this in our orientation that we provide to them about being accessible and available. Part of that is knowing how you prefer to communicate. We talk with the interns. A lot of these college students, I'm not a big, I don't use Twitter, and I don't really use Facebook, and I don't know all the other social media. I'm sorry?
Instagram.
I've never touched Instagram, don't know what it is. And Snapchat and whatever else there is, you know, I'm technologically challenged in that regard.
I'm talking about Pinterest.
My wife does Pinterest. But they have ways that they prefer to communicate. We've asked them to put that aside and find out ways that you prefer to communicate. If you prefer via email, if you prefer Twitter, or texting, sorry, if you prefer phone conversation or face-to-face, whatever that is, or memos, whatever your preference is, make sure they know that.
I've told, on that topic, I've told my intern that, you know, if she has more stuff to do than hours in the day, then she should get with the both of us, and we should decide, Representative Red and I share an intern, the two of us should decide what she does that day. She should not pick
Right.
whether she does my work or whether she does Representative
you.
Red's work. We should talk and we should decide what she does that day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Very-
I'm passing out something here to you right now. It's just a one-page, it's a daily summary that I developed with an intern last year. If you're struggling, if you're struggling with ways to use your intern, if you're not coming up with ideas, can I request of you that you do this with your intern? This is just a very quick, simple daily summary. You can adjust this based on whatever your needs are. But if you have your intern tracking your bills that you have sponsored, the status of those bills, if you have them tracking your committee assignments on a daily basis and what's on the agenda for your committees, if you have them tracking what's on the floor calendar and maybe the top 5 or 6 or maybe the top 10 bills on the third reading calendar so you're ready to go when floor time starts, if you do this with your intern, if nothing else, by the end of the 45-day session, they know how to track the status of a bill, to read and analyze that bill and provide a quick, simple summary. They'll know how to track committee assignments and read an agenda, and they'll know how to track what's on the reading calendar. And if nothing else, they'll come away with more knowledge than 98% of the citizens of the state. So, yeah, Representative Duncan.
One thing I do, and it's too late for this year, but I always invite my prior session intern to come up and meet my new intern prior to the session starting. As I would like to meet my intern before, but I can always give my perspective. But when I have my prior intern there, they give the real scoop on, you know, from the intern perspective, And then I have my prior intern come up for a few hours on the first day of the session, and it helps a lot because they can give it from an intern perspective.
Scare 'em off.
It's a very,
I appreciate each and every one of you being here. I appreciate Representative Dunnigan, Representative Arndt, and Senator Jones for participating. Thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for being cognizant of our interns and their needs. Thank you very much.